Yeah, ain't she sweet? That's a weird choice, but it's like a song from like the 20s or something. But yeah, the Beatles. God, they stole it from Eddie Cochran or Gene Vincent, and I can't remember which one. But anyway, then they had stolen it from somebody in like the 1920s, like a Tin Pan Alley like depression song. Ain't she sweet? Like that. I want you. She's so heavy. That's an interesting choice. That's like, I would say that's the first Norwegian black metal song, and it's a good song. It's a great song. All right, so how do you get your score up? How do you study? I'm only going to tell you what I did, and maybe throw in a few notes of encouragement here and there. So studying for the LSAT is no picnic, and there was one score that was going to make me happy, and that score was a 180. No other score was going to make me happy. And I swear to God, that is how I felt. I felt like anything less than perfect, and I am a failure, which is a lot of pressure to put on oneself, but you got to be a crazy motherfucker to go to law school in the first place. So, I was working for a newspaper at the time, and at the newspaper, oh yeah, this is just the flex, but I only did like a summer course there and got a certificate. I actually graduated from the University of Texas School of Law, which is the finest school of law in the country, by the way, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Texas is a weird, weird place, and Austin is a bizarre place. And the law school, it's the most diverse population. It's one of the strangest, most philosophical populations. The smartest people I've ever met in my life, I met at the University of Texas School of Law. And why is it such a magnet for weirdos, for eccentrics, for whatever? You know, people from out of state who go to UT Law, you know, they could have gone somewhere else. They could have gone to Penn. They could have gone to NYU. They could have gone to Columbia. They could have gone to Yale. They could have gone to Princeton. Could have gone to Chicago, Michigan, Northwestern, Stanford, Berkeley, Duke, Georgetown, Vandy. Fuck Vandy. Anyway, so there are a lot of good schools out there. And I loved University of Texas. You go to Austin, you get the vibe, you'll go to University of Texas. Now, enough about that. How did I study? As I said, I was working for a newspaper. And when you put down the newspaper at night, you know, because sometimes you're writing articles to the very, very, very deadline. And deadline is like 11 o'clock, midnight, somewhere in there. Because back in ye olden days, where I am from, you had to print the newspaper in time to bundle it up, in time to get it to the paper boys, who loaded it in their baskets and rode their bikes around, and then threw it onto your front porch. And that's how we got news back then. If something happened, we never found out until the next day. So, around midnight, we did what we call putting the paper to bed. And you're just done. Anything you've edited, anything, no more changes. And sometimes you're working right to a deadline. I was definitely one of those writers who was always hitting deadline. And afterwards, I would take my LSAT books, and I would go to this, and I just checked them out of the library. They were just books of tests, LSAT Super Prep, 10 more real LSATs or something like that. And I go to my favorite bar, you know, get there just before midnight, around midnight. Now, I wasn't doing a shot every single time I got a question right. Understand this. But I wanted to make studying pleasant for myself. So I went to this bar, and I'd order like a beer and maybe a burger because I just finished work. Plate of nachos. I don't know. Maybe I'd have 2 beers. Maybe. But I would sit there alone in the bar at a table and I would study. Now, were there people talking around me? Yes. Was there music on the jukebox? Yes. Were people placing their orders? Yes. Were people having arguments? Yes. So why did I study in a bar? Because I wanted distraction. I wanted to know that I could do it even when the world was crashing in. I wanted that extra stressor. I wanted the focus. So I go to a bar, and at 2 o'clock closing time, but I knew the bar owner, and if I put up the tables and swept the floor, she'd let me stay after and maybe have another free beer. And then, I'd go back to my books, and she'd finish closing up around 4. Or sometimes it was earlier. She's like, just finish up and lock the door. It was a lot of trust between us. But I wanted the distraction. Not everyone wants that. Some people, they can't work except in perfect silence. Life is not perfect silence. Life is busy. Life is loud. It's not perfect silence. Coffee shop. And I'm not saying you need to do it every day like I did, but I wanted to be annoyed by other human beings. And if you really want to be annoyed, I don't know, Starbucks, the Starbucks playlist is so very, very bad. I think it almost circles back around to being good again. But go be annoyed at least once a week. So I'd study there, and all I was doing was answering questions, figuring out what kind of question it was, and then breaking it down. And what I would do, because I was always muttering to myself, I would try and explain things out loud, because when you explain things out loud, they often sound like gibberish. It's really hard to articulate a question. Go take a look at any of the other videos I've put up. When I say hard to articulate something, I'm just saying it's the right answer. You're absolutely sure of it. But if I ask you to explain why, you can't. And why can't you? I don't know. Explain to me why 2 plus 2 is 4. Without using the words 2 or 4 or 1. Because you might say, well, 2 is 2 ones. And so you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's 4 and 2. But that's not an explanation, is it? That's just repeating exactly what just happened. Why is the sky blue? Or describe blue to me. I'm blind, describe blue. You can't. Now, there obviously is an answer to why the sky is blue, and it's something like atmospheric reflections, but irrelevant. So I'd study, and I'd break down the questions one by one by one, because I needed the basics. I was not rushing through questions. I was dissecting them. I was ripping them apart like I was apprentice serial killer hunting down stray cats in the street and murdering them to sate my thirst for blood before I graduate to killing people. I didn't want to just rush into tests. Taking test after test after test doesn't prove anything. I would agonize over questions until I could put it into real words. Why is this happening? What does this mean? How can I take this? Because everything about the LSAT is structure. If you can see the internal structure of the argument, then you can take that internal structure, abstract structure, and you can transfer it to another argument where all the details have changed, but it's the exact same argument. So you need to understand all the question types. You need to understand precisely what they're asking, because there is a very, very specific mindset for every single question. Flaws, assumptions, strengthen, weaken, paradox, parallel reasoning, method of argument, main point, role of the statement, the principles, the inferences, I don't even know what I'm missing. But anyway, they give you a task, and they give you a very specific task. And they're also giving you a very legal task. Every question on the LSAT, and I promise, anyone who's ever told you that the LSAT is irrelevant to the actual study or practice of law is 100% wrong. There is a reason every single question is on the test as it is. There is a reason assumption questions exist. There is a reason flaw questions exist, that strengthen questions exist. There is a reason. There is a legal reason. On your first day of law school, they're going to talk to you about thinking like a lawyer. Thinking like a lawyer. What does thinking like a lawyer mean? It means not thinking like a human being. A human being has thoughts and feelings and has their own motivations. As an attorney, your motivation is your client's motivation. Sometimes they use that term, fancy mouthpiece. This is my high-priced mouthpiece to describe an attorney. An attorney articulates a point of view that you possess. It's just that they do it better. Articulation is what lawyers are for, to explain why you did it, how you did it, what it means. Whatever the case is, your attorney is articulating your point of view, not his or her own, your point of view. But they are putting it into terms that the court can understand. They are putting it into polite terms. Just saying something, like, oh man, that motherfucker, he's got to give me the truck. That's my truck. Okay. You want the truck. What are you willing to give up to get the truck? Let's negotiate. Your best friend in the world is opposing counsel. Why is opposing counsel your best friend and not your enemy? You are the only two sane people in the room. Whatever your two parties are who are litigating against each other, and that's a goddamn train or something like that, rolling by right now. But whatever they hate each other for, you don't. You have to take two spiteful people, two spiteful companies, two spiteful whatever. They are horrible, horrible things, and you have to reconcile them to each other somehow. And sometimes the reconciliation is you submit completely. And sometimes the reconciliation is you take half, I'll take half. Sometimes the reconciliation is we'll redefine the contract, we'll rewrite it, we'll reinterpret it, and a lot of times it's just money, motherfucking money. Now, there is a legal reason, though, to have these questions. Why? Because they don't require outside knowledge. They don't require thought. They don't require anything at all. And I promise you this, they don't require you understand the question. I promise. They do not. It doesn't matter if you understand what you just read. I don't give a shit. You shouldn't give a shit either. Now, that's a lot of confidence to go in there and say, I didn't understand anything I just read, but I know I can get this question right. Yeah. But think about it. There's philosophy questions on there, and medical questions, biology, and there's geology, and there's astronomy, and there's physics, and there's economics, and there's whatever. Weird number of questions about dinosaurs. Weird number of questions about safety devices and crashes. Now, do you have to understand any of that? No. Why not? You going to medical school? No, you're not. Going to philosophy school? No. Geology school? I don't even know what geology school is. I have no idea, to be honest. Chemistry? No, not going into that. What are you going into? Law. What is the law? It's taking someone else's shitty point of view and making it polite and trying to get something out of somebody else and meet back there in the middle. That's all. And you are articulating that, and that becomes very important in the test. Are you going to like all your clients? No. Why aren't you going to like your clients? A lot of them are just assholes. So why am I doing this if my client is an asshole? Money is why you're doing it. But also everybody deserves a competent, quality defense. Everybody. The worst among us deserve it. Because when we go in and we are maybe not educated in the law, maybe not educated at all, maybe not familiar with the terms, maybe not familiar with the system. People think they are because they've watched TV, and trust me, TV gets it wrong a lot. You are there to make that person palatable to the court. And just because, all right, OJ, let's take OJ. I don't know why I'm doing this, but OJ, not guilty. That is the correct verdict. Now, did he do it? He 100% murdered her. He murdered her. He murdered Ron Goldman. That is 100% truth. So why do I think not guilty? The prosecution did a really shitty job. And also, I think the police really did try to frame him. Like, he was guilty, and he was already guilty. So they dropped a few things along the way to make him look guiltier. They tried to frame a guilty man. And that made the jury very suspicious. Now, OJ killed them. OJ was a killer. OJ was a murderer. OJ was not a good person. But did he deserve a good defense? As good a defense as he could buy? Yes. Yes. Did Jeffrey Epstein? Yes. Pedophiles, murderers, rapists, con men, even the President of the United States, they deserve good attorneys. The President of the United States, by the way, has no good attorneys. They are all awful at their jobs. But does he deserve good, competent counsel? Deserve is maybe the wrong word, but does he have the right to it? Yes. And even if you know your client is guilty, as long as they don't say, I did it, because you don't want to suborn perjury, you say what they want you to say, even if it's objectionable to you personally. There are several things you need to be in the law and on the LSAT. They're going to tell you to think like a lawyer all the time. Think like a lawyer, think like a lawyer, think like a lawyer. That is a mantra. And what is thinking like a lawyer like? Thinking like a lawyer is not thinking like a human being. Thinking like a lawyer is linear, logical, mechanical, mathematical, robotic, and most of all, sociopathic. Lawyers are sociopaths. They don't care about... The more sociopathic you are, the better lawyer you're going to be. I hate to tell you that. But if you got this client here and you don't like them, but you put on a good show for them, that's what you're there to do. I didn't like most of my clients. I liked maybe one of them. Why didn't I like them? Sometimes they were just really difficult to work with. Sometimes I knew they were lying to me, but I didn't know, but I still knew they were lying to me about something. And, it just, it breaks you. It can break you, seeing people just openly. But you take that. Why? Because this is an empty vessel. There's nothing inside you. You need to be able to go home and sleep at night despite some of the shit you're going to see. And I have seen some shit, believe you me. And eventually I did crack up. Oh, yes. Big crack up. Fun crack up. But you are a sociopath. You know nothing except what your client tells you. You're a sociopath. You know nothing except what the test tells you. You have no outside information. You go in with nothing. You have to be empty. And you have to think like a lawyer. And thinking like a lawyer, there are some good books out there. Getting to Maybe is a pretty good book if you want to check that out. There's a book called 1L by Scott Turow. Scott Turow was a big-time lawyer. I think he's still alive, actually. But he wrote the book Presumed Innocent, which was recently like an Apple TV show with Jake Gyllenhaal in the main role. And probably more famously, back in the 90s, they made a version of Presumed Innocent with Harrison Ford. And believe me, I did not see the ending coming. I did not at all. Double twist. But when he was in law school, he wrote this book called 1L. And it is a miserable... He is so sad. He is so unhappy. He is just so depressed and overworked. Now, you talk to him now, and he says things like, well, the reason I was unhappy is because I was trying to juggle classes and I was writing this book at the same time. So that's on him. But it's a good perspective on law school. Getting to maybe is a good perspective on thinking like a lawyer. How do you get to a jury just saying, that might happen? Getting to maybe. How do you get to maybe on a paper? How do you get anyone to maybe? You know, if you ever ask your parents for ice cream or something, hey, Mom and Dad, can we go out for ice cream? And they're like, and you're like, please, 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 I'll be so good. I'll go clean my room right now. I'll clean it so good, so good. I'll go do that right now, and then we get ice cream. Okay, maybe. And that's it. The moment your mother, your father said maybe, you knew it was really a yes. Why was it a yes? Because they don't want your ass coming back later and going, but you said maybe. Yeah, I said maybe. There's just a possibility, but we're not going to do it for sure. Your parents, I hope, did not do that to you. You had to beg and plead to get to maybe. But once you get to maybe, it's just a little push. It's a tiny little push. And obviously that's what we have in civil law. In a civil case, you have to make more than 50% of your argument a preponderance of the argument. So you're thinking like a lawyer. And also, you need to understand why the questions are asking these questions in a certain way. What pattern of thought are you taking from them? Can you take that pattern of thought and transfer it to another question? So I would just break down questions all night until the bar closed. Now, my last month, I took a month off work. I picked a remote village in the middle of nowhere, and literally nowhere at the time. I was on the Mexican border on the U.S. side. My phone, my Sprint flip phone, thought I was in Mexico the entire time so it was always on international roaming, and that's back when like a phone call cost you like $10 a minute. International roaming. So I had no phone. There was no TV in the house. There was no wireless internet. Wireless internet did exist back then, but I didn't have it. I would take a test in the morning because I'd broken down all the questions. Now I was putting it back together again. Individual question type, individual question type, individual question type, individual question type, break them down. And then I started taking full-length tests. And when I was done, I would score them, and then I would go out to lunch. There was only one restaurant in town, one total restaurant. I'd walk to it. I'd have a couple of tacos. I would have a couple of margaritas, real margaritas, rocks, just tequila, a squirt of lime, and some kind of orange liqueur. Personal choice there on which one you get. 3 ingredient. That's all you want. Now, I drink a few. I said a couple before. Now it's a few. Well, I drink a couple or a few margaritas, and then I would go back and I'd review my test in the afternoon. And it took me longer to review my test than it did to take it. Why did it take me longer to review my test than I did to take it? Because I broke down every single question, including the ones I got right. Because I wanted to make sure I'd taken the right approach. I wanted to make sure I'd maximized my time. I wanted to make sure there wasn't a faster way to do it. I wanted to make sure I didn't just get it correct by accident. I wanted to make sure, and any question I did get wrong, or any question I just felt like I spent too much time on that question. And if you feel like you spent too much time on a question, you almost certainly did. And it would take me 3-4 hours to review a test. Because reviewing a test is not just looking at the answer going, B, I chose A. I always narrow it down to 2 and then I get it wrong. I see why B is right. Moving on. That is not a review. You didn't learn anything except that you narrowed it down to 2 and you chose the wrong one. So I had prepped for 5 months, and then I went down to this little border town with nothing for a month. Test morning, margaritas, review. The evenings were mine. I could read. I could go two-stepping. I had quite a bit of fun. in the one bar in town. It was a very good time. Or maybe I'd just do some breakdown of LSAT that night. I didn't really want to go out. And then I get up in the morning and I do it again. And then I get up in the morning and I do it again. Now, is that insanity? Yes. Why did I do it? I wanted a 180. That was the only score that was going to make me happy. That's arrogant, but it's true. And you need to also learn formal logic. If you don't know formal logic right now, you need to understand formal logic. And not just not just I get it. You need to know it. Ice fucking cold. Ice fucking cold is the only, formal logic is hard. I like tons of people. But there's no way to get to that better score without a mastery of formal logic. That's one concept you got to master. What else do you need to master? The structure of arguments. What else do you need to master? The types of arguments. What do you mean types of arguments? There are so many different types of arguments. Let's say I want to convince my young lady, who's over here, I want to convince her to... Well, all right. So I had to convince her to go to see Oasis with me, because she's not a big music fan, and I am, and I love Oasis. They're from the 90s, if you don't know them, and if you don't know them, Wonderwall, that was their big hit. But anyway, they're back together. They're touring, sold-out stadium. First show of the North American tour I saw was in Canada. I was like, will you go to Oasis if I take you to Canada? And she's like, oh, intriguing. Because I just sweetened the offer. She doesn't really want to see Oasis, but does she really want a nice little vacay in Canada? Yes, she does. Why? Because America is too much right now? I don't know. I mean, America... I'm sorry, I don't know when you're watching this, but the president... had his little tank parade yesterday, and it was the most pathetic, sad thing I've ever seen in my life. This is not America. We're not living in America right now. I don't know what we're living in. It's like a proto-fascist state if it was run by completely incompetent people. Anyway, so I incentivized it, and that got her part of the way. So I was like, I'll pay for it. That got her another part of the way. I'll buy your ticket. That got her another part of the way. You don't need to stick around for the whole show if you don't want to. That got her another part of the way. And I kept adding things until I convinced her. Now, what was I doing there in the abstract? Well, one, she didn't want to go to this place, but I said, the concert is in this place. You want to go to this place, and they're going to combine. Now, what am I doing there? I'm saying, if you do this, you also get that. That's one way to convince someone of something, is to give them an additional benefit that they had not been receiving before. I'm not actually making an argument in favor of going to see Oasis. I'm saying, but if you do, you get this thing that you want. You want this thing happens to be taking place in this thing, you get it. Now, some people might call that a false equivalence even. What is a false equivalence? A false equivalence is, you got two things, they've got one thing in common, and so you say, oh, they're totally alike. Well, that's not true, but that's how all your friendships started. You started with, I got this one thing. Hey, friend there, I see you're wearing, I don't know, first day in the dorms, this kid was wearing a 9 Inch Nail shirt. I love 9 Inch Nails. If you don't know 9 Inch Nails, awesome. But I went up to him. I didn't have any friends. First day in the dorms, and I said, 9 Inch Nails. I just saw them. He's like, I just saw them too. Where'd you see them? And I was like, I saw them in this field in the middle of Nowhereville, up in what used to be a ski resort, I think. And he's like, I was there too. we took one thing, and then we talked. And we talked and we found out that we had another thing in common. And we talked and we found out another thing in common. And even today, I still know the guy. I was in his wedding just a few years ago. And this conversation, based upon a t-shirt, one thing on a t-shirt, took place 35 years ago. Now, is it true that just because you have something in common with someone, you have other things in common? No. That's why it's a false equivalence. Oh, you like Toronto. Maybe you'll like Oasis in Toronto. Maybe. But all your relationships, romantic, otherwise, started with a false equivalence. You meet someone for the first time and you go, hey, what's your major? That's my major too. Hey, what's your favorite movie? That's my favorite movie too. Hey, what's your favorite book? Oh my God, I've read that 10 times. What's your favorite band? Oh my God, I followed them on tour once. I went to like 4 cities. It was great. And after like 4 or 5 things, you start to think, this is my person. This is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. You are engaging in a false equivalence. Most of you, if anyone's even watched this far, when you meet someone for the first time, and you got those things in common, you know, that's the honeymoon phase. But then later on, you find out, oh, fuck. I mean, I went on this great date back when I was on fucking Bumble, and this woman, fantastic first date. And then we go on a second date, and she's like, I gotta tell you something. I was like, okay. And she says, I'm a Wiccan. I was like a witch? She's like, yeah, some people call us witches, but we're more nature goddesses. I was like, I can probably live with that. I don't think you need to worry about being a witch. And she's like, and I think I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. And I was like, witches for Trump cannot be a thing. Witches for Trump was a bridge too far. And so I was like, oh, fuck you, witches for Trump. And that was the end of it. The first date was great. Many things in common. Second date, which is for Trump. Oh, I'm sorry. That was way too much. That's too big a difference to get over. I'm never getting past that. On to the next episode. Now, when you meet your real person, though, you have something in common. And then you have something else in common. And then you have something else in common. My wife and I have known each other for 41 years, since we were children. And every day we have a wonderful conversation. And every day I find out something new about it. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. It doesn't feel like a false equivalence anymore. It feels like a real equivalence. But that's your person. When the false equivalence turns into a forever thing. If she suddenly said, I'm converting to, Scientology, and I think I'm going to vote for J.D. Vance in the next election, I would go, okay, it's over. I mean, it was good while it lasted, but I can't do that. Now, no offense to the Scientologists out there, whatever you are, that's fine. Xenu, cool. L. Ron Hubbard, cool. And I fucking love Tom Cruise. I love the shit out of Tom Cruise. I can't even tell you how much I love Tom Cruise. You know those compilation videos on YouTube where it's just Tom Cruise running for like an hour from all of his movies combined? Yeah, I've watched that shit because Tom Cruise just runs like he cares. Now, so anyway, that wasn't the point though. The point is, that's the argumentative formula. It's a false equivalence. And then what did I do? I offered to pay for it. I removed negative consequences. What's the negative consequence of doing anything? Paying for it. Getting there, driving, whatever it is. You say to people all the time, hey, you want to go out tonight? Nah. I'll drive. Oh, you'll drive. Completely different story. I will 100% go out tonight. That's an argumentative methodology. Is it on the LSAT? Yes, it's on the LSAT. Are false equivalences on the LSAT? Yes, they are. But they dress them up in different clothes all the time. I don't give a shit about the details. I don't care about philosophy, geology, engineering, whatever they're talking about. It doesn't fucking matter. And once you come to understand that, then you're in the right place to take a test, review. Take a test, review. But everything, speak everything out loud. Speak your own explanations out loud. Because I guarantee you at first they are not going to make any fucking sense whatsoever. That's how I studied. 5 months of breaking down questions. 5 months was, by the way, too long. 4 months, I think, would have done it just fine, maybe 3 even. And then a month of test taking and review. Now, I had the luxury of taking an entire month off work, and I know most of you don't. But you can still work in a few LSATs a week. You can still work in a complete review. Not this look at the answer, look at the correct answer and go, oh, I get it. No, you don't. You don't get it. Why don't you get it? Because you can't fucking explain it. If you can't explain it, if you can't put into words why it's right, you know it's right, but you can't articulate it. That's difficult. So speak out loud. Always speak out loud. Review, and then I went in. I took the test. I got a 179. I was so fucking mad. I was like over the moon mad. And I know some of you going, that's insane. Don't be 179. That is so good. If you get a 169, what's the only score you're going to be thinking about? Oh, 170? Well, when you get a 179, I guarantee you, the only thing you're thinking about is 180. So what did I do then? I signed up and I took the test again. And that second time, though, I got a 179. I got another 179. I couldn't believe it. So I signed up and I took the test again. Now, between the second and third times, my girlfriend broke up with me because she said I was going insane. No, I wasn't going insane. I was perfectly sane. Was I? Anyway, she's like, you have no time for me. All you do is LSAT. I was like, oh, come on. Why? I didn't really want her anyway. She did go to law school. She went to Villanova. She became a JAG officer. She joined the military, went off and adjudicated some trials in Iraq, I think, Afghanistan maybe. So good for her. But yeah, the relationship, that did not last. And I got another 179, so I took it for a fourth time. I got a 179. So I got 4 179s. Is there a part of me that, even though I've graduated from law school, wants to take the test again? Because my teacher was me back then. And I was learning it. I was building something. I was articulating something. But me now, I can articulate it better. I'm not reinventing the wheel. When I teach people, I just teach them the way I did it. But individual questions, individual concepts, formal logic. Get this book, Nonsense, by a guy called Robert J. Gula. Robert J. Gula, the book's called Nonsense. You can get it on Amazon for like $12. Get it. Read it. It's not about the LSAT. It's about argumentation. Get it, read it again. I don't care. Read it 3 times. I don't care. That is your entree into thinking like a lawyer. I promise you, you will not be disappointed by this book. Even though it's not an LSAT book, it's the best LSAT book I know. Okay. Wow, that really went on for quite a while. I don't think anyone stuck around to the end of this video, but if you did, yeah, I really have nothing for you. I have no other words of wisdom. I'm tapped out. All right, that was fun. Bye, kids. I hope that helped somebody.